ICE agent commits suicide in NYC, leaves note revealing government plans to round up and disarm Americans during economic and bank collapse. Updated twice, May 10 and May 12. Bottom, after writing a lengthy suicide note exposing terrifying plans the government has for American citizens, a U.S. Customs agent walked onto a pier in NYC and blew his brains out. Sources inside the New York City Police Department have revealed to Superstation 95, the contents of a suicide note found on the body, and they are utterly frightening. The note, which says it was written over the course of a full week in advance, outlines why the officer chose to shoot himself. The America I grew up in, and cherished, has been murdered by its own federal government. Our Constitution has become meaningless and our laws politicized so badly, they are no longer enforced except for political purposes, the note said. Our elected officials are, to a person, utterly corrupt and completely devoid of any love or respect for the country which pays them. To them, everything is about getting and keeping power, and making illicit money from backroom deals. The 42-year-old U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement deportation officer shot himself with a .40 caliber service pistol inside Pier 40 in Hudson River Park at around 11 a.m. 1. A source at the scene described how the officer calmly walked into the park, took out his pistol and shot himself in the head. A ICE federal agent fatally shot himself in the head at waterfront Chelsea Park, pictured, in New York Friday. The 42-year-old worked as U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement deportation officer and his offices were nearby to the scene of the shooting. He was rushed to Lenox Hill Hospital but doctors were unable to save him. 2. ICE released a statement Friday afternoon. Tragically, a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, deportation officer from the New York field office suffered a self-inflicted gunshot wound and has passed away. It added, the agency is not releasing further details pending notification of the officer's next of kin. According to the suicide note, the officer said, I was hired to enforce the law, to capture and deport people who come to this country against our laws. But now, if I dare to do that, I face being suspended or fired because our president refuses to faithfully execute the duties of his office. Instead, I come to work each day, and collect a paycheck twice a month, for intentionally doing little to nothing. I cannot and will not be party to this fraud, to this usurpation of the law, or to the despicable politicians betraying our nation, the note continued. ICE's Office of Professional Responsibility is reviewing the matter and coordinating with the New York Police Department on the investigation. The agent worked at a field office in Lower Manhattan, just blocks away from the scene of the shooting. Mentions FEMA camps for Americans. 3. In the suicide note, the officer revealed what he claimed are terrifying plans the feds have been finalizing. If the American people knew what this government is planning, they would rise up and overthrow it. If I or anyone else in the federal government revealed what is coming, we would be killed anyway, so now I will reveal what I know. We in federal law enforcement have been drilling for several years to control riots and uprisings from a coming financial collapse and widespread bank failures. The drills involve life-sized images of American men, even women, and children, whom we are told to shoot for practice and to get used to it. We have been told that the economy is terminally ill and will fail in 2016. We are also told the banks are all insolvent and the FDIC doesn't have nearly enough funds to bail out depositors. We are told these events are unavoidable and it is imperative that the government survive when people rise up over this. When the collapse takes place, detention camps created under the FEMA Rex 84 program in the 1980s to house illegal aliens whom we were going to deport, will instead be used to imprison American citizens whom the government feels constitute a threat. American citizens will be rounded up without warrants and imprisoned without trial for God knows how long. These camps have been equipped to carry out Hitler-scale killings. An actual purge of American citizens by the very government which they, themselves, created and pay for. I cannot be party to this. The note goes on to say talk about state-level National Guard being disarmed by the feds, 4, and over 1 billion rounds of ammunition purchased by the feds, 5, and the military overdeployed and being shrunk, 6. The government knows the military will rise up to stop this, so our military is being deployed overseas, intentionally involved in foreign fights, and deliberately shrunk in size so they cannot be here or help Americans. This is why certain ammunition and weaponry has been removed from state-level National Guard armories and over 1 billion rounds of hollow-point ammunition has been bought by the federal government. The states themselves have been disarmed of military-grade firepower so they cannot defend themselves from the federal activities. This is also why local police departments have been militarized and provided with armored vehicles and weapons of war, the note says. When the inevitable collapse begins to take place, electric power to the entire country will be shut off, as will all forms of communication. All banks will be immediately closed. No one will be able to get any money because all ATMs will be offline. Credit, debit, and EBT cards will not function. Anyone without cash will have no way to get any. The emergency alert system will be used to take over all broadcast stations and tell the public this is a result of a cyber attack. But while the American people patiently await things to get back to normal, the government will unleash round UPS of citizens they deem militants or dangerous. With all civilian communications out, and all TV and radio stations taken over by the emergency alert system, by the time word spreads of what is taking place, the government will already have the upper hand. Federal prisoners to be gassed to death. The note goes into a wide array of very specific plans and does so in extremely specific detail about what the feds are allegedly planning. For instance, it talks about federal prisons. Every federal prison has been outfitted with lethal gas systems. When things go bad, all prisoners in all prisons will be placed in their cells on lockdown. Prison staff will depart the facility, and a certain designated person will trigger a lethal gas system. All federal prisoners, regardless of their crime or their sentence, will be gassed to death in their cells. Once the gas clears, the dead will be removed and the prisons will then be used to house citizens who fight against the federal onslaught. Priests recruited to quell opposition, 7. The note makes mention about priests, rabbis, and clerics from various religious denominations having been recruited and trained to quell resistance. So intent is the government to succeed, they have recruited priests, rabbis, and clerics from various religions to quote appropriate scriptures about obeying government. They are being trained to tell people not to fight back and that their best hope is to pray. Executive Order 13603, 8. The suicide note goes to great lengths about Executive Order number 13603 signed by President Obama on March 16, 2012. The note details. Executive Order 13603 about National Defense Resources Preparedness. This 10-page document is a blueprint for a federal takeover of the economy. Specifically, Obama's plan involves seizing control of all commodities and products that are capable of being ingested by either human beings or animals. All forms of energy. All forms of civil transportation. All usable water from all sources. Health resources, drugs, biological products, medical devices, materials, facilities, health supplies, services, and equipment. Forced labor, or induction as the executive order delicately refers to military conscription. Moreover, federal officials would issue regulations to prioritize and allocate resources. Superstation 95 took a look at this executive order from the Government Printing Office, GPO, website and, sure enough, everything contained in the officer's suicide note about this executive order is true. To be sure, much of this language has appeared in national security executive orders that previous presidents have issued periodically since the beginning of the Cold War. But more than previous national security executive orders, Obama's 13603 seems to describe a potentially totalitarian regime obsessed with control over everything. Obama's executive order makes no effort to justify the destruction of liberty, no effort to explain how amassing totalitarian control would enable government to deal effectively with cyber sabotage, suicide bombings, chemical warfare, nuclear missiles, or other possible threats. There's nothing in Executive Order 13603 about upholding the Constitution or protecting civil liberties. In what circumstances, one might ask, would a president try to carry out this audacious plan? Executive Order 13603 says with ominous ambiguity, during the full spectrum of emergencies. Database of preppers. The suicide note touches on the subject of preppers. We in federal law enforcement have also been told that the government has a full database of all so-called preppers. Those people will be dealt with first by armed federal agents coming to take their guns, then their food stocks, so food can be redistributed as the government sees fit. If the dead officer's claims about an unavoidable economic and banking collapse are true, would it then follow that the executive order put in place by Obama might be activated? Would all of us find ourselves in forced labor, while the government takes our food and redistributes it under the executive order's paragraph about allocating resources? This is terrifying stuff. There is much more to the suicide note, and Superstation 95 is considering how much more to publish. As such, this is a developing story and readers should check back for further updates. These could simply be insane ramblings. It is not our intent to cause panic or alarm, and while we expect readers to be intelligent enough to discern this on their own, we feel compelled to point out that these could simply be paranoid ramblings of an insane person who killed himself. On the other hand, these could also be revelations by a person who was so distraught over the ugly truth, that he killed himself. We at Superstation 95 just don't know. We urge everyone to stay calm, think rationally, and decide whether or not to take any action to prepare, in case this person's suicide note is telling the truth. Sourcing/corroboration. 1. ICE agent suicide in NYC, New York Daily News. 2. Taken to Lenox Hill Hospital, New York Post. 3. Rex 84 FEMA camps, Wikipedia. 4. National Guard being stripped of crew serviceable weapons and communications gear, Republic Broadcasting, John Stadmiller. 5. Department of Homeland Security orders 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, Forbes magazine. 6. U.S. Army overdeployed and intentionally shrunk Army times. 7. Clergy recruited by government to quell opposition, KSLA TV Channel 12. 8. Executive Order 13603 White House U.S. Government Printing Office. Update, May 10, 2016, 10 p.m. EDT. The website Snopes.com has issued a declaration that our story is some sort of hoax, that we are somehow not a radio station, and attributed the story, and this website, to a former FBI National Security Intelligence asset named Hal Turner, whom she smears as a white supremacist. This is not the first time Snopes.com has made accusations against us simply because we have been the exclusive source of politically incorrect news. And while we stand by our stories in every regard, this barrage of attacks by Snopes.com is becoming libelous. We address the Snopes.com accusations one at a time. 1. No aspect of our story above is a hoax. What Snopes.com seems to take issue with is the existence and content of a suicide note which was revealed to us by the NYPD. The person from NYPD who gave us this information did so after trying to get two other New York media outlets, one TV, the other a newspaper, to publish the story, and was rebuked within minutes by media contacts who said, "We won't touch this with a 10-foot pole." The fact that the NYPD now claims no note was found does not surprise us at all. NYPD has very close ties with the feds, and the feds have an intense interest in concealing or discrediting the information it contained. 2. According to the FCC Licensing Bureau, 95.1 FM in New York City is the HD4 frequency for WNSH 94.7 FM as licensed by the FCC as shown here. 3. Our story was written by our newsroom staff, not anyone named Hal Turner. 4. Mr. Turner was formerly a paying customer of this radio station from October 7, 2015 through March 30, 2016. He bought airtime from us to air his personal radio show The Hal Turner Show. Finances caused Mr. Turner to cancel his programming on our radio station and continue his show on WBCQ International Shortwave, where he is on the air live from 9 to 11 p.m. every Wednesday evening. Mr. Turner's website is halturnershow.com. He is welcome to return to our airwaves if his finances improve. 5. Snopes.com claims Mr. Turner is a white supremacist. In reality, Mr. Turner worked for the FBI from 1993 to 2008, with his Todd as the Joint Terrorism Task Force from 2003 to 2008. His job was to infiltrate white supremacist groups to thwart violent criminal acts by such persons. This information came out when the Obama administration betrayed Mr. Turner in 2009 and arrested him for writing in 2009, what the government paid him $3,000 to say on Dateline NBC and Fox News Channel just 4 years earlier in 2005. After 3 trials, 2 hung juries, Mr. Turner was bankrupted by legal fees, was appointed a public defender, who threw the case, resulting in Mr. Turner's conviction. For Snopes.com to smear Mr. Turner as a white supremacist when federal court records show the exact opposite, is a prime example of the utterly shoddy research and reporting provided by Snopes.com. The criticism and Snopes.com outright falsehoods about this story, and others, have been written mostly by Ms. Kim A. Capria, age 37, born March 20, 1979. 39, Kakano Avenue, Babylon, New York, 11702-1901. Those of you who are offended by this type of journalistic misconduct, may wish to contact Ms. Capria in a peaceful, lawful, non-threatening, and non-violent manner to complain about her shoddy journalism. Please do not harass this ignorant person, and please do not make any threats or commit any intimidation. None of us need that, and it will only result in serious legal trouble. Ms. Capria can be reached at tel. 516-422-7943. 516-422-7494. and /or 631-691-3415. If you prefer email, you may contact Ms. Capria at anang209@aol.com or kim@socialnewsdaily.com. You may be interested in knowing that at some point, and perhaps to this day, Ms. Capria was employed by Facebook with a contact telephone number, in the past, of 650-308-7300. In closing, we at Superstation 95 work very hard to get real news that the public can make use of. We do not filter our news based upon political correctness. We stand by the story and all the stories we write and hope that you, the reader, can hear the ring of truth in our reporting, as we continue to uncover exclusive information and report the facts. To that end, we have now exposed the journalistic writing of Ms. Kim Capria as false and hope that Snopes enjoys a dose of its own medicine. Ms. Capria and others at Snopes put themselves out in the public domain and hurl criticism and accusations at us and many other fine people. Since they put themselves out in the public domain, they are public figures who can be publicly criticized. Our goal with this update is to achieve that. Anyone else at Snopes who performs similar acts against us can expect the same treatment. Update, May 12, 2016, 1:16 a.m. EDT. Despite our clear rebuttal above, yet another journalist chose to attack us and this story, repeating the misstatements by Snopes.com and adding some new outright falsehoods of their own. In a rawstory.com article entitled "Right-Wing Loon Turns Agent's Suicide into Conspiracy Hoax," writer Travis J. Geddes claims the story is a hoax that essentially recycles last year's Jade Helm 15 conspiracy theory and goes on to claim that Superstation 95 is neither a radio station nor a news site. This website is linked to white supremacist and former Fox News regular Hal Turner. Superstation 95 is linked to neo-Nazi Hal Turner, who frequently appeared on Sean Hannity's Fox News program. begging Americans to rise up and overthrow the U.S. government before it's too late. With regard to item number 1 above, shown in our rebuttal to the original Snopes.com hit piece, the FCC Licensing Bureau shows the licensing of 95.1 FM and is linked above. As to item number 2, we made clear in our rebuttal to Snopes.com that Mr. Turner was merely a paying broadcaster who ended his 6-month relationship with Superstation 95 on March 31. He does not own, operate, or contribute to the content of this website. Moreover, rawstory.com repeats the same false, misleading and defamatory claims that Turner was/is a white supremacist when in fact, as shown above, Turner was with the FBI from 1993 through 2008 and in his final 5 years, was with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, JTTF, to infiltrate white supremacist groups to thwart acts of violence. All this is proved by federal court records, yet Travis Geddes from Raw Story went ahead and ignored these facts nonetheless. Speaking of court records, both Snopes.com and rawstory.com mention that the contact attorney for this website is the same as Turner's criminal defense attorney. We wonder if it ever occurred to Snopes.com or to Rawstory that, as a media outlet, Superstation 95 was mortified that Turner was arrested and imprisoned for an editorial and, when he was wrongly convicted, that it was us who suggested Turner seek out our law firm because we knew they would help? Schlam. Stone & Dolan is a very large law firm, with dozens of attorneys. The firm occupies 3 floors at 26 Broadway in New York City, the old Standard Oil building in the heart of the financial district. They usually handle commercial litigation but took Turner's case because it was a dire affront to the rule of law and a direct attack by government upon freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Even worse, Raw Story's writer, Travis Geddes went on to say, in item number 3 above that Turner is a neo-Nazi, then utterly fabricated a claim that Turner frequently appeared on Sean Hannity's Fox News program. This proved to be a flat-out falsehood. One of the editors here at Superstation 95, Christian Rivera, telephoned Hal Turner to inform him of these 2 articles and ask for Turner's response. Never once, in my entire life, did I ever appear on Sean Hannity's Fox News Channel program, said Turner. In fact, the only appearance Turner ever made on Fox News Channel was on the program At Large with Geraldo Rivera, and when he appeared on that program, Turner did so with the direct approval of the FBI JTTF because it was part of an effort to uncover who murdered the family of federal Judge Joan Humphrey Lefkow in Chicago, which had taken place just days before. Video of Turner's appearance on Fox News Channel is available on YouTube from various uploaders such as this one, https://youtube.be/pkr-mmm5v7w. Folks who view the YouTube video need to understand that at the time, I was operating under deep cover for the national security of this country, in an active murder investigation. What they are seeing is an intelligence operation by and for the FBI and the federal government, Turner said. All of this came out in federal court in 2009 and 2010, where that video was actually played for one of the 3 juries. For Raw Story to use my work with the FBI against me, is disgraceful, he went on. With respect to item number 4, wherein Raw Story writer Travis Geddes claimed our story suggested the dead agent's note was begging Americans to rise up and overthrow the U.S. government before it's too late, you need only scroll up to see it said nothing of the sort. The third block quote from the agent's suicide note reports his note as saying if the American people knew what this government is planning, they would rise up and overthrow it. Nowhere did the agent or our story beg the American people to rise up and overthrow the government before it's too late. It simply isn't there, and for Travis Geddes to assert otherwise shows he's either lacking in reading comprehension, a retard, or a despicable twisted manipulator of the facts. This is the beyond shoddy journalism on the part of Travis Geddes. In our view it is outright journalistic fraud. If this is the type of half-assed reporting that routinely appears in rawstory.com articles, then they just shot their credibility straight to hell. Knowing what our article actually said, and comparing it to what Raw Story reported, how can any rational person believe anything Raw Story ever publishes? They appear to make things up as they go along. The outright falsehoods about this story, appearing in rawstory.com, were written by Travis J. Geddes, age 43, born February 25, 1973. Those of you who are offended by this type of journalistic misconduct, may wish to contact Mr. Geddes in a peaceful, lawful, non-threatening, and non-violent manner to complain about his shoddy journalism. Mr. Geddes can be reached at phone number 859-581-6713. If you prefer, you may elect to write to Mr. Geddes at his home located just outside Cincinnati at 710 Maple Avenue, Newport, Kentucky 41071-2044. Please do not harass this ignorant person, and please do not make any threats, commit any intimidation, or break any law at all. None of us need that, and it will only result in serious legal trouble. You may be interested in knowing that at some point, and perhaps to this day, Mr. Geddes was employed by the Cincinnati Enquirer newspaper. If he is still employed there, we would urge the newspaper to make a very serious review of any news stories written by this person, since his ability to check facts and accurately report do not seem to exist. In closing, we at Superstation 95 work very hard to get real news that the public can make use of. We do not filter our news based upon political correctness. The fact that Snopes.com went to great lengths to attack us, and now a radical left-wing cesspool like rawstory.com has chosen to do the same, calls to mind the saying, "Thou doth protest too much." This seems like an awful lot of media exposure and effort to unleash if, as these outlets claim, our facts are wrong. Why such a strenuous response to something which is allegedly incorrect? Perhaps, as you may be starting to see, our story is correct. The powers that be know it, and they're now pulling out all the stops to cover it up. Sorry folks, the cat's out of the bag, and nothing you folks in government, or your henchmen in the mass media, can do, will cover this up. We stand by this story and all the stories we write, and hope that you, the reader, can hear the ring of truth in our reporting, as we continue to uncover exclusive information and report the facts. To that end, we have now exposed the journalistic writing of Mr. Travis J. Geddes as false, and hope that Raw Story enjoys a dose of its own medicine. Mr. Geddes and others at rawstory.com put themselves out in the public domain and hurl criticism and accusations at us and many other fine people. Since they put themselves out in the public domain, they are public figures who can be publicly criticized. Our goal with this update is to achieve that. Anyone else at Raw Story who performs similar acts against us can expect the same treatment. Since this story has become dated, we have decided to incorporate our Snopes.com and rawstory.com rebuttals seen above, into a new story for publication later today, May 12th. The politically correct left wing is clearly on the warpath that certain government plans seem to have been exposed. It thus seems best to bring this issue to the fore rather than let it go quietly into the night. The more they try to cover this up or discredit it, the more we will cover it.